Do you want to hear my scary story of the week since you told us yours last week?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to set the scene. I know you've been to my house before. You know, I have a lot of windows in my house all along the back, and there's more woods than my anxiety prefers. So when Blake is out of town, I try my best to avoid roaming the house when it's late.
Mm-hmm.
But after multiple days of him being out of town, the house is just pure chaos, and it makes me feel like I'm about to spontaneously combust. So it's about 1 a.m. and I'm cleaning the kitchen. I'm putting all these things away, cleaning up the toys, picking up just random stuff. I don't know how it ended up on the floor. And all of a sudden, I hear the faint sound of a lullaby playing.
What?
I cannot find this sound. There's nothing else playing in my house. I don't know what's going on. It was almost to the point that I'm like, am I hearing that? Is that real? That's real. You know what I mean? Like, you're like, oh, there's the moment that I'm about to lose it. Oh, it was crazy. And so it's not coming from the area where all the baby toys are either. It's coming from the back by my garage door area.
What?
It's terrifying. My stomach's now just in my butt. Like, it's just, I can't, like, I'm going to throw up. You know, every urban legend, horror movie, true crime story, it's all flashing through my mind. I'm trying to find the source of this music, but I'm also just yelling at myself, this is how you die. Just call the police. You know, just don't, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But right as I'm having this little argument back and forth with myself in my mind, I find the little portable sound machine that the music is coming from. I swear, that was the most terrifying moment I've experienced in a very, very long time. And so, needless to say, I'm still a little creeped out about it because you have to hold down the button on the back of this sound machine for a very long time for it to turn on. So I know for a fact I didn't turn it on. I'm still just running through my mind of like, okay, there's a Frogger. Do you remember frogging? I'm like, there's a Frogger who's just, there's someone in my house that's just messing with me and turning on these little toys. Could you imagine though? Could you imagine like someone being in your house and just turning on kids' toys? Every time you left a room or something, they're just like turning on another thing just to like drive you nuts.
I was expecting you to say that like when you turned it off and then you walked away again, it turned on again.
No, then I would definitely call 911. That would be game over. I would not play after that. One time, okay. 2 times, nope.
Have you ever seen that movie When a Stranger Calls?
Oh, Drew, I'm pretty sure I saw it with you. Yes. I hate that movie.
I guess like that's considered frogging, right?
I just got goosebumps. That's exactly what that is. That would be
frogging.
frogging.
Oof, gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Yeah. Oh, anyway, so when that happened and I was just so scared, I'm like, I can't sleep now forever. And I was just thinking, I really want to just tell Drew this story.
You should have called me, but I probably would have made it worse, to be honest with you.
You'd have been like, it's probably a ghost.
It's probably someone that's living in your attic.
Oh my God. I don't need that. But honestly, the way my attic is, if you're living up there, props to you. That's commitment.
3, 2.
Hi, Dee.
Hi, Dee.
What's new with you? Are you getting settled in New York?
I am. It's so fun to be back, but I'm not actually in New York right now. I'm taking the podcast to New Jersey.
Oh my gosh. By the end of season 1, we need to count how many different cities you've taken the podcast to. So you ready to get into this?
Let's do it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Forensic Files Duo podcast, where we recap, review, and provide updates on the cases featured on the true crime TV show Forensic Files. I'm Drew, and I knew nothing about true crime until we started this podcast.
I'm Danielle, and true crime practically raised me. While everyone else my age was watching, I don't know, Boy Meets World, I was watching Forensic Files, Matlock, and any show your grandma and grandpa were probably watching.
If you're listening to us for the very first time and want to hear more about our friendship, episode 1 wraps up our 20-year friendship in about 8 minutes.
Yes, and you also get the whole origin story behind Drew and I being the forensics duo since we were 15. So episode 1 really helps it all just make sense.
That's right. And today's drink from my grandpa's little black book of custom cocktails circa the 1930s is called the Tom Collins. It's made with 2 ounces of your gin of choice, of ½ ounce of lemon juice, a 1/4 ounce of lime juice, and 1 teaspoon of sugar. Put it in a mixer, shake it up, and pour into a glass with some ice and add a little seltzer water. And Do you like this one?
I really like it. All the ones with the sugar. They're my jam. Look, these episodes are heavy. Having a drink on hand, it just, helps us get through it. So now for our regular disclaimer, we understand that we will be discussing a lot of sensitive topics. So although we may laugh at times, please remember that we are laughing at ourselves and ourselves only. We are not making light of what the victims and their families have gone through and may continue to be going through.
And in an effort to use the public's overall interest in the show Forensic Files and leverage the power of digital media, once the episode coverage is over, we will highlight 2 missing person cases. A case that's currently on the BIA's Missing and Murdered Indigenous People database and another on the Black and Missing Foundation's website.
Today's episode is called Funeral Services. It is listed on Wikipedia as episode 20 from season 14, and it first aired on June 3rd, 2011.
This episode covers the murder of funeral home owner Lonnie Turner Sr., who was found shot to death in his Navasota, Texas home. Have you ever heard of Navasota?
No, but when I tried looking up more info, I found a thread where people were trying to name the Texas town they came from without saying the town they were from.
Okay.
Navasota's was Nasty Soda. I thought it was funny, but in all seriousness, this is a very old town. It's about an hour outside of Houston. It was a major trading post in the early 1800s, but when the railroads came into play, a lot of businesses left. Businesses then, like brothels, casinos, those took over. So then Texas Rangers apparently came in and straightened it all out. A source for this episode that I use is another podcast called All Crime, No Cattle. I don't think they're publishing any new episodes, but in episode 58 called Close to Home, they cover this case and they do a really good deep dive into the town's history. So if you're interested in hearing more about that, definitely give them a listen.
Peter kicks off the episode with a teaser of what's to come.
Up next, the murder of a funeral director.
911 with emergency. Man, my freaking daughter's been shot.
It just didn't make sense. It didn't ring clear at all.
Right at the top, we get a 911 call, gruesome crime scene photos. We're told the evidence indicates the killer is someone Lonnie Sr. knew.
But the intro ends with a man saying,
I'm thinking we've messed something up somewhere. We've made a mistake.
We learn about Lonnie Turner Sr., and we love how they introduce him.
Not only does everyone have good things to say about Lonnie, everyone here claims to basically be best friends with Lonnie. We meet Captain Bryant Wells and James Harris, and they make it very clear how much they cared about Lonnie.
Lonnie owned and operated 2 funeral homes, and he became the first African-American member of the city council and school board.
Go Lonnie!
Right? The episode, it only mentions 1 funeral home, but multiple sources cite 2 funeral homes. And one of them, I guess, was heavily operated at the time by his son, Lonnie Jr.
What?
Yeah, so let's call him Jr. just so we can keep it clear of who we're talking about, because they're both named Lonnie. I really think they do a great job explaining the weight of who this town lost, who the world lost, and it really just stuck with me throughout the entire episode.
Me too. And James Harris is here again. His lower third says family friend, but he is way more than that, as we will come to learn.
He would help the needy. I mean, if you didn't have money or you didn't have insurance to take care of a service, he would tote the note for you. A lot of times, he went unpaid.
Tote the note is my new favorite saying.
Tote the note. I think there's going to be a lot of these little slogans that we are going to get through this episode because it's
Texas, man.
Yeah, I know. Well, we can't wrap up this section without introducing Prosecutor Tuck McLean. He's also fighting over the position of Lonnie's BFF. He says Lonnie broke down a lot of racial barriers.
The world was just better with Lonnie Sr. in it.
Truly.
Yeah, well, now we really start getting into the events of November 1st, 2002.
In the reenactment, we see Reenactment Jr. approaching his father's home and realizing the back porch light had been unscrewed.
And apparently it is well known that Lonnie leaves his back door unlocked. With everything else we learned about being in his home, like the guns, thousands of dollars in cash, etc., I just find that to be insanely irresponsible. I mean, no one in general should ever leave their door unlocked, but all those firearms unsecured and scattered around the house, it just makes me nervous sweat.
When Junior goes inside, he sees light from under his dad's door, which is unusual for his dad. Now, remember, they said it was close to midnight.
Yeah, and I mean, I totally relate to that. My dad is rarely awake past 9 p.m., so if I saw that at his house, I would totally go check on him.
But when Junior opens the door, his dad isn't in his bed and there's blood on the wall next to it. Junior takes a few more steps and sees that his dad is lying face down between the bed and the wall.
Then cue the very strange 911 call.
Navasota 911, what's your emergency? Man, my freaking daddy done been shot. That's terrible. I can't believe it. Can I have like as many detectives or something Montgomery Road right now? Please. You need ambulance and everything.
Now, I know you taught me not to judge someone's 911 call, but Danielle, not even this one?
It is weird. It is a very weird one. I will give you that. Lonnie Jr. is someone I don't think anyone can ever make much sense of, but immediately what got my attention is that he says his dad was shot. And I've heard that used against people on trial because in a split second, when you see your loved one covered in blood and unresponsive, how do you know? I mean, they could have been stabbed, they could have been beaten, they could have been
wood chippered, as we've learned from Henry Lee.
or wood chippered.
Anytime someone is missing now, I'm like, okay, but has anyone that knows the victim rented a wood chipper lately? Because we need to check that.
Detective Drew, please take us through your line of questioning when a person is missing or murdered, based on your experience of
Ooh.
6.25 episodes of a true crime podcast.
Okay, challenge accepted. Okay. Hello, my name is Detective D. Allen. Side note, I chose D because it sounds more sophisticated instead of Drew in this detective scenario.
Okay.
So, okay. Hello, my name is Detective D. Allen, and I would like to ask you a few questions regarding the missing persons case of Miss Toladine, Miss Ortha Toladine. First, I would like to start asking you, where were you on the date of March 7th, 2020? Second, this is a very important one. What is your star sign? Do you own any towels? Do you know what heuristics are? Because if not, you've got another thing coming, buddy. And what about luminol? No? Okay, well, I don't really know about that either, but I know using these will make us know if you truly are a suspect. I also really hope your alibi is going to line up because we're going to make sure that is double and triple checked to make sure your story is true and prove you really are a prime suspect in finding out what happened to Miss Toladine. End scene.
I love it. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Well, back to the 911 call. The words used in this call are just so awkwardly put together, but if it isn't rehearsed, then I'm not sure what else was going on because it's not even on the other side of the emotional spectrum where, usually someone is accused of being too much of something, too emotional or too, too not emotional. But this is it's just Lonnie Jr. because boy, oh boy, the updates I have about him at the end. Oh God, it's why this episode took me so long to finally wrap up because it's kind of out of control.
Really?
Yeah, it really is. It's
oh,
weird.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
So while Junior is on this call, he's freaking out like one should, but his instinct is to go to the collection of guns he owns under his mattress. Then proceed to run out of the house and drive where? Oh, drive to the police station.
I never want to accuse anyone of using drugs or anything, but I am curious if the police did a tox screening on him or something because this behavior is so strange.
So strange.
Yeah, but also, of course, again, we never know how we will react in these situations until we're in it, so.
Right. But then, while Junior's driving to the police station, the police are driving to Lonnie's home when he gets there. And what do they find?
Lawson was inside making a sandwich. Y'all, if this wasn't documented in multiple legitimate places, I'm not sure I would believe if this was true.
Also, why did the cops knock on the door? They already got a call that there is an unresponsive person.
I know. I thought the same thing. And it turns out they all know this person and everything. So wouldn't they just want to, knock down the door? So there are a few TV shows that cover this case too. One of them was Nightmare Next Door. The host of that show asks a lot of questions that I was also thinking that Forensic Files did not ask. So apparently the police officers saw movement in the house. And what we haven't mentioned is that this is also all going down just a little after midnight on Halloween. Yeah, so even though the date of his death is November 1st, the crime is suspected to occur during the late hours of Halloween night.
Ooh.
And we know people do some weird shit on Halloween, so Who knows what was going through the officers' minds? But, we even decided to make a podcast, a true crime podcast on Halloween. So
That's true.
people do some weird shit. And here we are.
Yep. Lawson says he was staying there for the night. He called out to see if anyone was home, but when no one responded, he figured his brother had to run to the funeral home, which wasn't unusual.
The victim's brother, Lawson, answered the door.
So a little more info on this is from that podcast I sourced and from Nightmare Next Door. Lawson was a college football referee and he had a game to work in Houston the next day. So he was cutting his drive time down by staying with his brother. But what I'm now wondering is if Junior saw the light on and knew that was unusual for his dad, did Lawson not see the light on? Did Junior turn the light off? I'm just
agreed.
wondering that detail.
But maybe he never looked.
And that's the thing too. Okay, so maybe he never looked, but for the amount of guns in that household, this man feels just totally fine just walking into his brother's house past midnight, never confirming whether the people who live there know he's there, and just starts whipping up a sandwich. I don't know.
But also, like, watching this, you know that he's making a sandwich, but his brother is dead in the other room. Like, that just gives me the heebie-jeebies.
Oh, yeah, that just gave me goosebumps. I didn't even really think about that.
Well, they put Lawson in handcuffs until they can clear the house. Once they find Lonnie, they confirm he's dead and then tell Lawson. And the audio we hear of Lawson processing the news is actually so heartbreaking. And all I want to know is that they took that man out of handcuffs.
I really hope so.
They find 2 spent 9mm shell casings around Lonnie's body, so they also make the assumption that he was shot. They tell Lawson this, and Lawson is very forthcoming about the fact that he's carrying a firearm as well.
So the spent shell casings that they show in those crime scene photos, that made me wonder if Junior possibly saw those. And that's why he quickly came to the conclusion that maybe his father was shot. But it does seem like this family is very, very, very comfortable with guns. So you could also just make the argument that it was just the first place his mind went to. Because one thing I wanted to mention too is that in the Nightmare Next Door episode, the officer that found Lonnie and confirmed his death was also his friend. So he knew both Junior and Lawson and Lonnie Sr. So this just wasn't a situation where they were dealing with people they weren't familiar with.
Yeah, and there was no sign of broken entry. Nothing was stolen. There's money, there's guns, it's all there. And the timeline of events of Junior finding the body and leaving, then Lawson just coincidentally showing up and making a sandwich before looking for his brother just seems strange to investigators.
Right. But, a sandwich-focused man does not mean he's a murderer.
Right.
Now, because Lonnie owned the funeral home, he often dealt with law enforcement. So this whole town was on high alert for who did this to their friend.
And out of nowhere, Peter is hyped up.
Lonnie Jr. said he came home, found his father injured in the bedroom, then grabbed his gun and cell phone, called police, and drove to the police station.
Peter, stop yelling at me, Jesus.
Junior tells the officers that he never even checked on his dad to see if his dad was breathing. And to be fair, I can't say that I would either if I thought for a single second that the shooter could possibly still be in the house.
Right. Now, going back to the guns, police confirmed that Lawson's gun didn't match the 9mm shell casings. He passes a lie detector test, and his hands test negative for gunshot residue.
Junior's fingerprints, however, are on the 9mm gun, and his hands do test positive for gunshot residue. And the bullets are confirmed by this firearms expert that we meet, Laney Emanuel, to have been shot from that same 9mm.
I was able to determine that the questioned bullet from autopsy was fired in the submitted Taurus pistol.
This doesn't look good for him at all.
No, it doesn't. But since he did admit to grabbing his gun after finding his dad, that could easily just explain away that residue. But the big plot twist here is Junior claims his 9mm gun had just been missing for weeks, but he never reported it missing. And when he went to go get a gun after finding his dad, what do you know? That gun has just magically reappeared under his mattress.
I mean, nothing really at this point really looks good for him at all. Like the fact that you just all of a sudden insert, oh yeah, this gun got stolen from my house for 2 weeks.
And my dad is now dead, and it's now back.
Yeah.
What do you know?
What do you know?
What do you know?
Oh gosh, I just replaced that gun.
Okay, so now I have a true crime class that also has to do with episode 4 when we covered the death of Trey Cooley at that gun range. That was also in Texas.
I don't know. We're finding a little bit of correlation with Texas here.
Texas. I don't think we need to state the obvious.
Yeah.
But let's go through this section before we confuse everyone.
Okay, well, back to Laney Emanuel, the firearm tool mark examiner. I truly don't think he blinked once while looking like he was half asleep.
He just looks like he's slowly reactivating.
When they do the gunpowder residue test, is it the same kind of test they perform at the airport, though? Because that seems... Do you notice that?
I did. So... According to husband Blake.
Go Blake.
Go Blake. That's exactly what TSA is looking for. He's not sure if law enforcement uses the exact same strips that they swipe our hands with, but TSA always does this to my hands when I have to walk through with my kids. And I'm just like, is this society's way of telling us that they know how strung out moms are and they're on the verge of losing it, but they're just not willing to, do anything to change it? So at the bare minimum, let's just wipe their hands. Make sure they're not ragey and packing explosives. I have enough space in my bags to pack explosives, please. I guess now would be a good time to discuss the true crime class I mentioned a few seconds ago. There's a court case in Maryland regarding ballistic science from NBCWashington.com and WUSA9.com. A Maryland Supreme Court ruling questions how reliable ballistic science is and how it can be used in criminal trials. This is pretty groundbreaking. I've been hearing about it on true crime podcasts. It's actually how I learned to investigate it further. Attorneys for a convicted killer in Prince George's County challenged whether crime scene analysis can definitively match bullets to a gun. Maryland's highest court ruled the idea of a perfect match doesn't match up with the science. The court placed limits on what forensic experts can say in all cases involving guns moving forward. Now, this is just in Maryland. The decision is a stunning turn for a forensic method that took center stage in the case against the DC snipers John Muhammad and Lee Malvo. A big part of the case against them was a microscopic analysis of bullets and fragments that examiners said prove that this Bushmaster semi-auto assault rifle that Muhammad had in his possession fired the shots that killed 17, wounded 10, and terrorized the region in the fall of 2002. There's a former public defender quoted in the articles that I sourced, and she says that she's seen too many cases where a forensic expert declared a specific casing came from a specific gun. The Maryland Supreme Court ruling puts limits on this kind of testimony. They can still say there is some pool of weapons that could have fired this, and this gun that was recovered on the scene is within that pool, but they can't go further than that to say it was this gun. It's just because the science does not support that. The science is flawed, according to Jeffrey Gillerin. He's the chief of forensics division at the Maryland Office of the Public Defenders. There was a study called Ames 2, and what that study found is that when they tried to reproduce the opinions of one examiner versus another examiner, they found that over 50% of the time, the second examiner came to a different conclusion on the same evidence than the first examiner. Yes, reproducibility is basic science 101 and the requirement for a valid scientific method. This particular method simply is not reproducible. And that's a big, big problem, Gillerin says. The issue is whether firearms experts have told jurors a bullet matched a gun, he said, which he admits is testimony jurors will totally lean into. Now, under the current law, a firearms examiner cannot testify that a specific bullet came from a specific gun without offering the jury some limitations. Commonwealth's attorney in Alexandria said in Virginia, experts can't testify a bullet matches a firearm either, but they can't say it isn't impossible. Does that make sense?
Whoa, that's a lot of info. So you're saying they no longer are proving ballistics, yet they can't prove that a bullet came from a gun.
A specific gun. They can say
specific gun.
Yeah, they can say it looks like it narrows it down to, this group of guns and it's possible it came from that gun. It shows markings, but it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, which is huge.
Whoa.
Yeah, because it basically throws it out. I mean, you can have one expert testify that, yeah, I believe it came from this, and you have the other expert say they would just cancel it out.
We find out that Lonnie Sr. died between 9:15 and 10 p.m. They confirmed that he had talked to a female friend around 9:15, but when Lawson tried calling him around 10, Lonnie didn't answer. While Junior's alibi for his whereabouts during that time are shockingly verified, yet he wouldn't take a polygraph test. And why is that?
Okay, Drew, never, ever take a polygraph. If they ever ask you to, I pray you're never in that situation. But if
Me
they
too.
do,
Jesus Christ.
but hey, if you're ever talking to a friend and they need this advice,
Okay.
kindly decline. Tell them
Okay.
you know how unreliable those tests are and that you'd like a lawyer. Then shut up. Don't say anything else. Even if you want to, even if you're perfectly innocent, just shut up.
Wait, why?
Because they can lie to you to convince you that they have something against you. And then that just is a slippery slope to a false confession. And when they break you down hours after hours after hours, and then you just want to get out, and then you're like, I'll clean this up later. I'll figure it out later. They'll prove it. There's no evidence, blah, blah, blah. It does lead to a lot of false confessions. And no one needs that.
Have you watched the Selena and Yolanda special?
No, not yet. What is she claiming? It was a coerced confession?
Yeah.
Oh, bullshit.
I don't know, Danielle. There's a lot of stuff. It talks about a lot of stuff that people didn't know about Selena, and all of Yolanda's
Interesting.
family had all of this information that they are now releasing to the public.
Documentaries, you always have to research who funded it and what their motive is, because they get wild and they really can sway my opinion, everything. And then I found out, I'm like, oh, they left out the complete other side of the story. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the day after the murder, police officers found a felt mask and 2 gloves. I have so many questions about how this came about and how they tied this to this murder, but the mask is actually giving me full The Strangers vibes. Did you get that?
How dare you? You know that movie destroyed me.
Oh, that was actually top 5 of my favorite movie theater experiences with anyone in my life.
We saw it together. I literally had a sweater over my face the entire time. I would peek out a little hole that I had practically ripped from pulling at my cardigan threads. Only 2 movies have ever had such extremely powerful impacts on me. It was Urban Legends was the first one.
Oh, yeah, good one.
But I mean, I saw that one when I was 10, so I just think it was just more understandable of the impact it had on me. But regardless,
I actually just rewatched that
did
too,
you?
a week ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's so good.
I still check the back of my car, under my car, and panic if anyone ever flashes their lights at me while driving. But The Strangers happened, and just being near a lot of windows at nighttime, it makes me uncomfortable when Blake is out of town because of that movie.
And they are coming out with a new movie in May, which is called The Strangers: The Beginning. So it's the prologue and tells you how they became who they became.
No.
Yeah.
So we now meet our forensic scientist for this episode, Miss Jennifer Watson. Jennifer, though, makes her debut looking like she needs a safe word to be rescued. Girl, blink twice, Jen. We will come for you.
Masks are good objects to find DNA profiles on due to the fact that they're in close proximity to your skin, and also in the mouth region, you get good profile from saliva.
Danielle, I heard there was some found footage of Jennifer right before she went on camera. Can we play that tape?
Shit.
Jennifer, we're rolling.
I have to roll. Oh no, that was gross. My throat, so dry. Okay, nope, don't make that noise either, Jen.
And action.
Masks are good objects.
If anyone listening knows Jennifer Watson, you tell her how proud we are.
Because no one becomes a forensic scientist to be on TV. No one. In today's influencer world, who knows? But regardless, I can see the effort she put into this, and it will not go unnoticed, Jen.
It will not, Jen. We are halfway through this episode. Instead of learning more about the investigation, we're now learning about Junior.
At the time of the murder, Junior is 21. Lonnie and Junior lived and worked together. He's an only child. His parents separated when he was a teenager, and he was being trained to take over his father's funeral businesses.
In stark contrast to his father, Junior doesn't have people singing his praises here. There's a lot of people that are quick to share their opinions of how he spends his money, his flamboyant personality, and the fact that he had a lot to gain financially once his father died.
We also find out that there was a rumor going around that Junior was selling embalming fluid to lace cigars or cigarettes laced with marijuana, and then they dipped the cigars or cigarettes in embalming fluid. And I guess it can make you hallucinate.
What?
I don't know. And so those other additional sources that I mentioned earlier, they explained that it was Lonnie Sr. who actually personally asked his friend Captain Bryant Wells to look into the claims himself. But, nothing ever popped up. There was nothing to corroborate these rumors.
Well, now we're back to our forensic scientist, Jennifer. Peter then takes us through her DNA testing process. She takes the epithelial cells around the eyes, lips, etc.
Apparently, we're supposed to know what epithelial means.
Peter really abandoned me on that one.
They're apparently the cells covering the inside and outside surfaces of your body.
She's able to gather through epithelials to create a genetic profile and compare it against Junior and Lawson's DNA, but...
shockingly, it's not a match to either one.
The results surprised everyone.
The result was that Lonnie Turner Jr. was excluded as a contributor to that profile.
The DNA from the mask was also compared to the victim's brother, Lawson. His DNA also did not match.
So it's back to square one, and they now have to cast their net of suspects a little wider. And that's when they discover that 19-year-old James White, who is Lonnie Sr.'s godson, that he had been writing fake checks from Lonnie to himself, stealing thousands of dollars.
Well, this godson of his is James White, and he is also the son of James Harris. Remember the tote the note man in the beginning of the episode?
Yes.
That's his son.
Yep, and now investigators are checking the godson's alibi.
He said he was at a party that night around 10 p.m., but when they checked with the friend, officers find out that James was scrambling to call all these friends, begging them to lie to the police.
Now, the friend was with him that night, but not until closer to 10:30.
So James White quickly becomes suspect number one.
And our girl Jennifer seems to be warming up to the camera now because she tells us that there is so much DNA present that it indicates that he wore the mask.
When I was told that, I almost jumped out of my boots.
So now we see reenactment James being interrogated, and James's story suddenly changes. When someone in the room just mentions Junior's name, James comes up with a whole new story.
He now claims that he was hired to kill Lonnie Sr., but he doesn't stop there. He says Junior had a gun to his head the whole time and threatened to kill James if he didn't go through with it. But the issue with this is Junior was having conversations with multiple people on multiple different phone calls in between running errands that entire night.
If there was any truth to James being hired to murder Lonnie Sr., why is James lying about details that keep him the shooter? So if you're going to lie, why not remove more responsibility?
Exactly. Or if he is telling the truth or had every intention to tell the truth, then there's no way Junior could be there. So it would only make sense if it was a murder for hire without Junior being there. And that would be way more plausible. But he gave himself away by making up that lie about Junior holding the gun to his head because multiple phone calls were made and the investigators said that they spoke with every single person Junior talked to that night and no one mentioned anything abnormal. They mentioned that they didn't hear, any kind of argument or him talking to someone else or threatening someone, let alone hearing gunshots.
Okay, ready for the recap theory?
Let's do it.
Prosecutors believe James White needed money.
James has a history of burglary.
And he was violent during his last burglary.
He knew Lonnie Sr. kept cash and guns in his house.
He knew Junior kept his guns under his mattress.
It's likely James had stolen the gun weeks before.
James unscrewed the light bulb and entered the open back door.
Expecting no one to be home, he entered the home to steal the cash.
When James found Lonnie Sr., he most likely panicked and shot Lonnie in the heat of the moment.
And due to his panic, he left without taking anything with him.
He ran out quickly and threw the mask and gloves into the creek.
Although the evidence says otherwise, some people still believe that Junior had something to do with it.
After 2 hung juries, James took a plea deal for life in prison.
And although his father agrees that James's punishment is fair, James Harris believes Junior should be in prison as well.
Lonnie Jr. wasn't there that night when his father was murdered. There's no question about that. The evidence clears that for me.
So, any updates?
Oh, do I have updates? Okay. as I was Googling to see what Lonnie Jr. was up to today, or if there was any updates on, like, if they ever found new evidence or had to prosecute him, or if the opinions have changed about him, I found myself on his Facebook profile. Now,
What?
before it sounds like I doxed him, it was linked on a ton of articles that sent me there because these articles, they never made the Forensic Files connection or anything. So he was linked in articles for a different reason, and here it is. So, for starters, one thing I found out is that Junior's mother, she had actually passed away just months before Lonnie Sr.'s murder. Yeah, so according to Junior's Facebook, she suddenly passed away due to a heart condition.
Whoa.
So he lost both parents back to back.
Yeah.
That is important for me personally when I'm thinking about how he's reacting to things and if they don't make sense. I mean, he probably was just trauma response, right? Like, this can't be real. Now, while I was looking up the case and other information, a handful of articles popped up. All these articles are man admits to cheating and tells his wife and mistress they need to get along or something like that. This is the Facebook post. It is a photo of two women side by side. One is his wife, and apparently one is his friend. Yeah, okay.
Friend.
Now it says, this is Lonnie Turner Jr. These two better learn to get along. I work extremely hard, and I think I deserve to have everything my little heart desires. Why have a cake and can't eat it? I want multiple cakes. Hashtag wife. Hashtag chick. Hashtag best of both worlds. 100.
What?
Oh, just you wait. Just you wait.
There's more?
Now here are some of Junior's own words responding to commenters on his post. Everyone can't do what I do. I work extremely hard and make a lot happen. I have lots of choices. I've chosen to deal with these two for the past couple of years, but it seems to be becoming too challenging because of the hate they have for one another. Either of the two can grab their hat and coat, he puts it in quotes, like this is what they said to him before, and move on to a different situation. There are plenty of people waiting for either of them to fuck up. I'm not worried. As I stated earlier, they have choices. Both of them can make the choice to become regular. There are a lot of guys who will appreciate being with either of the two. If either of them leave the situation I've set forth, they will be fine. I'm simply stating what I desire is, so they both will understand what is required. I've told them both privately, now they should know I'm dead serious, and we have the entire world as witnesses. I'm not a regular guy. I have the ability to change lives. I'm also very generous. My wife had a great life before we ever got married because of the fact we had children. I don't understand that. They both remember how life was before me. I'm sure they don't want to go back to eating leftover taco meat and soup. The audacity. So then he said, just imagine if they had given you the choice to be with them knowing they have someone else. At least you would have had the option to not get hurt, or you may not have contracted whatever disease you've contracted. We all have our shortcomings. Life for me is real sweet. I couldn't be happier. There are not many people that can live my life or do what I do. Hashtag there can only be one me.
This guy.
So listen, he was actually getting quite a lot of praise for being upfront about it. Oh, this part just enraged me, though. I can't stop a lady from being with whoever she feels she needs to be with. I have told them both that they can date who they'd like, but they better make sure they have something long term. I'm not sharing. If I found out, it is a wrap. All right, now, from the looks of it, I guess I'm headed straight to hell, according to some of you. I guess the main difference in me going and others going is that I get a first-class ticket since I don't hide what I do.
Oh, Lord. Oh, Lord.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you sitting down? Okay, this commenter says, all I keep thinking is that there should be a TV show about you. I mean, they have that one show with the man and all his wives. May as well have you. He comments and goes, I actually have 2 shows about me already. One on IDTV and one on True TV. And then someone goes, you have lost your damn mind with this reply.
Wait, is he talking about Forensic Files?
Yes!
Dude, that's about you killing your dad.
Yes! That's why someone's like, you've lost your damn mind now. Like, you've officially lost your mind. Okay, so then after that, I was like, yep, I found everything I need to find. But, you know, of course, I just continued down.
A rabbit hole.
So that was 7 years ago.
Okay.
Then at the end of it, someone commented, it was like 2 years ago. Like every, I guess, couple of years, it pops back up kind of spreads around. We've all seen that happen with viral stuff on Facebook. So then you see him 2 years ago laughing at someone's reply and goes, I'm a changed man today. And then he comments under again, I'm glad I no longer have the same mindset I had years back.
Do you think that he had anything to do with this?
I went back and forth.
Yeah, me too.
And I do not.
You don't?
I don't. I think there's some mental health at play. It sounds more manic. I don't think, because then there's contradicting things of like either he's smart enough to have called everyone, planned all that out, but then dumb enough to put the murder weapon back under his mattress and literally deliver it with his fingerprints, not James White's fingerprints.
Right.
So it just was too forthcoming, and the stuff of the way he did it, I mean, it's not clean enough where you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like how would he know that, oh, that's not enough to convict me? He's not in that industry. He wouldn't know. So like who in their right mind would put the murder weapon back under his bed and then be like, oh, I lost it 2 weeks ago though, but he has no police report. Like if he was actually smart, he'd have a police report. And then James makes it very clear that he's lying. So if he was involved, that's not the right story. So why would James change the story?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just like if James's story made sense and was like, I was hired to do this, and all of those phone calls that he made were him making his alibi, then I'd be like, yeah, absolutely. You know, I would probably be like, yeah, I really think he was involved. But James lied about his involvement, and if it was true that he was involved, there's no way those two coexist. Because at first I was like, no, I really think he was involved.
I thought he was too. But then like the genuineness behind James White's father saying, I do think that Lonnie Jr. should be in prison as well. It wasn't like I'm defending my son and it wasn't this huge dramatic thing. It was like a genuine feeling. That's why I was like, I'm not still fully convinced.
I know. But then when I listened to that podcast, Close to Home from the Texas podcast, the way that they told Lawson's timeline and Junior's timeline and everything, it made it very clear where Forensic Files really bounces between like, this is what Junior's doing at the time that Lawson's doing this, and it kind of like is discombobulating a bit. It was interesting because then when I did see his Facebook, I was like, yeah, they're right. When they say he was really flashy, that's just how he always was though. It wasn't anything new, you know, and he was already going to get the funeral homes. And what's interesting, oh my gosh, I can't believe I almost forgot this. The funeral home, he stopped paying taxes on it. He completely relinquished his rights to it. And then it suspiciously burned down in a fire. But he wouldn't have been able to collect insurance money from it because it was literally scheduled to be auctioned off the next day when the fire happened. And he was being questioned about it, but there was literally no information about whether it was an arson, what the investigation uncovered. There was no information. After the article about the funeral home burning down the day before it was supposed to go on auction. I can't believe I forgot to put that in the notes. But yeah, so he wasn't operating it. He wasn't even doing anything. He had moved to Houston, I think. I think he moved to Houston. And so it doesn't even look like he profited, you know, like, because even if he did get insurance money, he didn't pay taxes for that for 7 years. So I don't know all that information, but I know the state sure as hell wouldn't just like let him get paid out by insurance. And what's so funny too is like, on his Facebook, he has like his cover photo from in 2017 is literally him at a funeral home. So the photo was originally posted as his cover photo in 2014. Maybe he was still doing something in that industry, but he's surrounded by funeral home vehicles, but it's like a hearse. That's a Cadillac hearse. And then like a Mercedes van, like a, I don't know what those, you know what, like when you're on set, they'll transport you in those nice vans. Yeah. And then there's an actual G-Wagon and a Porsche. And he's surrounded by them. And it's like, this was my life for many years. This chapter of my life is closed. Many more chapters to create in the future. 100.
Oh my God, the 100. We heard in the interviews, like he was just a flashy person. So that does make sense.
Oh my God, I forgot this too. He ran. In 2008, he ran for county commissioner.
Oh, this guy just seems a little bit off the tracks here.
Exactly, which is why I'm like, I don't know if he actually is capable. Because it's on one side, one thing has to be true, but both cannot be true.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like he's either a mastermind
or he has nothing to do with it, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think it looks good for him.
No.
But I think that's just unfortunate circumstances, truly. Okay, so now Junior has since come back to the Post to respond to the comments and explain that he's a changed man now. And, what does, though, seem to be inspiration for that change is unfortunately his health. I don't know what he's going through exactly, but he did talk about his dedication to his wife now and how she's been taking care of him while he's been so sick. Then he tagged his location at a cancer treatment center.
Oh, no.
His post, they show a very complicated individual. He clearly is fascinated with the money, showing off money. His posts often talk way too much about sex. And to me, some of the posts just, they make me suspicious of possibly being in a manic state of some sort.
Right.
More than anything.
Right.
Now he's had years to remove posts like that viral post.
Yeah.
And change his profile to private and lock things down. But it does seem to be that he really likes the attention. He does also seem to still be in touch with his family. Oh, it was in The Nightmare Next Door. Lawson, his uncle, states that he genuinely does not think that Lonnie Jr. has anything to do with it. He genuinely believes that.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. I just hope everyone impacted by James murdering Lonnie Sr., I hope they find peace. And that's a wrap on my updates.
Woo, that was a big one.
I know, right? Now for our missing person cases that we would like everyone to know about.
From the Black and Missing Foundation's website in Dallas, Texas, we have Demarie Thomas Royal. He was last seen on February 23rd, 2024. He was last seen in Dallas, Texas. His complexion is medium. He's 6'3". He's 125 pounds. His hair color is black, and his hair length is short, and his eye color is brown. The circumstances of his disappearance are unknown, but Demarie was last seen in the northern Dallas, Texas area. You can submit information to the Black and Missing Foundation's tip line at blackandmissinginc.com/tipline.
And from the Bureau of Indian Affairs.gov, Neil Little Eagle went missing on July 20th, 2017, and was last known to be in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. He is described as having black hair, blue eyes, 5'4" in height, and 140 pounds. Neil was last seen at Pine Ridge Indian Health Service Emergency Room. Now, his sister, Cheryl Little Eagle, describes her brother as happy and a helpful man, but according to Cheryl, he had just been recently diagnosed with dementia before he went missing. Pine Ridge Tribal Police Department and BIA OJS Missing and Murdered Unit are seeking information that may assist them with the ongoing search. I will say that his family doesn't feel that law enforcement is really taking her brother's case seriously, but he has definitely been someone that really needs help and was definitely in danger. So if you have any information that may assist them with the ongoing search, please submit tips by texting 847-411 or calling 1-833-560-2065 or emailing ojs_mmu@bia.gov. Thank you.
Our next episode is from Season 1, Episode 4, and it's called The Footpath Murders. I'm excited for this one.
Oh my gosh, that sounds
scary.
Very scary. Woo, okay.
I'm ready for it.
So if you like our podcast, please help us spread the word. Share on social media, share on Reddit, share everywhere, and drop a review to tell us what you think.
And if you don't have a nice day, sashay away.
Until the next one.
Bye. And he is also fighting over the
Based off of your experience now of 6.25 F. Based on your experience of 6.25 F. Oh my God. I'm annoyed with myself. I just want to shut up and go to sleep.